I never had the privilege of going to his island.
Donald Trump would start a war with Iran when he was cornered about his dark past and destroy everything.
Yesterday, Republican Congressman Thomas Massie tweeted, "Bombing a country on the other side of the globe won't make the Epstein files go away any more than the Dow going above 50,000 will."
Two missiles light up the night over the Persian Gulf. At the same moment, in a quiet room far from the cameras, documents begin to disappear. We're told these events are unrelated. One is war, the other is procedure. But sometimes, the biggest stories are the ones happening at the same time. Did Donald Trump start a war with Iran to hide the Epstein files? This question is being asked by millions of people. Some think the timing of global tensions is too convenient to be a coincidence. Others think this is another made-up story from the internet. When so many people are asking a question, they want answers. Today, we look at one of the controversial questions. Did a US government make a conflict in the Middle East worse to distract people from a scandal at home? Are these just two separate events that people on the internet have mixed together? Before we make any conclusions, let's take a closer look at what's happening. On media, people are asking many questions. Why have tensions between the United States, Israel, and Iran suddenly increased? Why is the United States supporting Israel strongly during this escalation? Why are news headlines suddenly focusing on Tehran just as discussions about the Epstein case start trending again? Some people think that powerful governments sometimes benefit when people focus on something. Throughout history, major international conflicts have often dominated the news, effectively burying scandals that might otherwise lead to problems at home. Because of that pattern, people are naturally wondering if a similar playbook is being used today. In the world of international relations, speculation is not evidence. To find the truth, we must look at facts, history, and the realities of relations. A key part of this puzzle is why the United States supports Israel strongly. This relationship is not temporary. It is one of the alliances in modern geopolitics. For decades, Washington and Jerusalem have shared intelligence, military technology, and economic partnerships. From the perspective of foreign policy, Israel is considered a vital strategic partner in a volatile region. Because of that relationship, when Israel faces threats from rivals, most notably Iran, the United States historically provides political cover, military hardware, and diplomatic backing. However, this strong support creates friction within the American public. Some believe this alliance prevents regional chaos. Others argue that deep involvement in Middle Eastern conflicts risks pulling the United States into another costly war. These debates are not new. They have been the baseline of discourse for over 50 years. While these traditional debates persist, an alarmist narrative has taken root online. Viral posts often suggest that Iran is on the verge of collapse, or that its leadership has been secretly neutralized. Yet the reality on the ground is more complex. Iran is a powerhouse with a population nearing 90 million people. It possesses a military and a political structure that has survived decades of isolation. The idea that such a nation could disappear or be easily erased by a military campaign is a geopolitical fantasy. The Epstein files remain an issue that refuses to go away. The case of Jeffrey Epstein is perhaps the disturbing scandal in modern US history. A wealthy financier accused of operating a sex trafficking network involving minors. Epstein's story was shocking, not just for its depravity, but for the company he kept. His social circles included some of the powerful people in global politics, finance, and entertainment. Over years of investigation, thousands of documents, court records, witness statements, and legal filings have been collected. Collectively known as the Epstein files, these materials represent a ticking clock for high-profile figures. Every time a new batch is unsealed, or a new witness comes forward, public interest surges. People want transparency and accountability. They want to know who was involved and what the people in power knew. However, we must distinguish between being mentioned in a file and being involved in a crime. In high-profile cases, names appear for a multitude of reasons. Some were victims, some were business associates with no knowledge of the crimes. Some were merely social acquaintances. This nuance is often lost in the frenzy. When the release of these documents coincides with a strike or a diplomatic crisis, people's natural tendency is to connect the dots. The theory of diversion suggests that a crisis is manufactured to move the headlines from one story to another. Without verified evidence, this remains a correlation, not a causation. To truly understand if the current escalation is a distraction, we must acknowledge that the US-Iran conflict did not begin with the Epstein files, nor did it begin with the Trump administration. The hostility between Washington and Tehran is a seated historical trauma that stretches back over 70 years. The timeline begins in the 1950s with Mohammad Mossadegh, Iran's democratically elected prime minister. Mossadegh made the decision to nationalize Iran's oil industry, which had been controlled by British corporations. In 1953, a covert operation backed by the US and the UK, Operation Ajax, removed him from power, solidified the rule of the Shah. For the quarter century, the Shah was America's primary ally in the region, but his authoritarian rule and Western-leaning policies alienated his own people. The 1979 Islamic Revolution changed everything. The monarchy was. The Islamic Republic was born under Ayatollah Khomeini. When Iranian students seized the US embassy and held 52 Americans hostage for 444 days, the relationship was severed. Since then, the two nations have been locked in a war characterized by economic sanctions, proxy battles in Iraq and Syria, and a long-standing dispute over Iran's nuclear ambitions. In 2015, the Iran nuclear deal, JCPOA, sought to hit the pause button on this conflict. However, in 2018, the Trump administration withdrew from the deal, citing its one nature, and initiated a maximum pressure campaign. This decision naturally led to increased friction. When viewed through this lens, the recent spikes in tension are not sudden or suspicious. They are the conclusion of a policy trajectory that was set in motion long before the Epstein documents became a focal point of public interest. Despite this history, the theory of diversionary conflict persists. It is a concept studied by scientists, which suggests that leaders facing domestic turmoil may seek out an external enemy to boost their internal standing. The logic is simple. A nation at war rarely switches leaders midstream. The media focus shifts from domestic failure to national security. While this theory has precedents, applying it to the current situation requires a leap of faith that the evidence does not yet support. In the information environment, news travels through social media algorithms that prioritize engagement over accuracy. A theory that links a pedophile ring to a potential World War III is the ultimate engagement bait. It combines the horror of the Epstein case with the existential dread of war. This environment creates ground for what analysts call pattern seeking. When the public loses trust in its institutions, it stops believing in coincidences. If the government says, "We are striking Iran because of security," a skeptical public asks, "What are you not telling us?" This erosion of trust is an issue in American life, but it does not change the fact that the geopolitical motives for the Iran conflict are well documented and consistent with decades of foreign policy strategy. To reach a conclusion, we must look at what can be confirmed. The US and Iran have been on a collision course since 1979, with an escalation beginning in 2018. The Epstein investigation is a legal process controlled by the judiciary, not just the executive branch. There is no whistleblower, document, or recording that suggests military orders were given with the intent of suppressing the Epstein files. If the goal were to hide the files, starting a war with a regional power like Iran would be an incredibly risky and counterproductive way to do it. Wars are unpredictable. They often lead to scrutiny, not less. They require budget approvals from Congress and international cooperation, both of which would bring more eyes to the administration's actions, not fewer. Furthermore, the Epstein files are largely a matter of the court system. The unsealing of documents is typically handled by judges in response to civil lawsuits, such as those filed by Virginia Giuffre. A president has limited power to stop an order to unseal civil court records, making a military distraction an ineffective tool for stopping the legal process. As we look at the files, we can see we forget about the files that were never recorded. As we watch the missiles on the news, we miss the agreements happening in secret meetings. The Epstein case didn't end with his death, and the Iran situation won't end with a treaty. There is another part of this story that hasn't even been shared online yet. Something hidden deeper than a flight record. Something explosive than a drone attack. The question isn't what they are hiding now. The question is, what are they getting us ready for next? The files are still open. The engines are still on. The real action, it hasn't even happened yet.